The first time Captain Picard worked with Geordi LaForge, he made some offhanded remark about the shuttle's efficiency. Beverly Crusher hates making out death certificates, and Ensign Ro shoots her phaser directly into Riker's forehead. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Good stuff. Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 24. Where does the time go? The Next Phase, written by Ronald D. Moore, directed by David Carson. This was May 16th, 1992. Where were you, and how are you today, Sirach Lofton?
Doing great. Glad to be alive, here in the flesh, not even phased or cloaked.
Sirach watched that episode unfazed.
Exactly.
Everybody, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. That's very important. And especially if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/the7th-rule and join this awesome community. We'd love to have you. So, Sirach Lofton, here, let me frame this thing a little bit for you, like a DP would do. I remember this episode. It again is another one of these episodes that was most memorable and ingrained into my youth. You know, I really feel like the first time I watched Star Trek Next Generation was Season 5 reruns, because clearly these Season 5 episodes are really, ingrained in my head. But this is your first time ever watching this episode, I believe. What did you think of it?
Well, when the episode started, I look for the writers always because I want to write down who wrote the episode. And to my pleasant surprise, this is a Ronald D. Moore episode.
And a non-Klingon episode for once. He's always writing those Klingon episodes.
And a no other person credited. I just think it's Ron Moore and that's it.
Yep.
So we get his vision, we get his view. I'm sure there's probably some edits here and there that people are not credited with, suggestions or tailoring stuff. But for the most part, this is the majority of Ron Moore creation. And I thought, okay, this is going to be good because I have a lot of respect for Ron Moore. And, he always gives you a lot of quality writing. It's going to be thought out. It's going to be, it's going to be in the vein of Star Trek, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, in this particular episode, what I like about it is the fact that the Romulans basically are introduced in the beginning, right from the opening scene. We get the distress call. We get Rolaren questioning Riker on the decision whether to go there unarmed.
Yep.
All of those things. And so my antenna were up. My suspicion was raised. I was like, Ro, I was thinking, what the hell? Somebody got to have a phaser. We can't trust these guys. And so all of those kinds of things are set in the background. As you begin to watch the episode, you start to have questions of like, what kind of trap are they walking into, essentially? And then when you see that there is actual destruction on the ship, that people are in panic mode, that the captain is dead, it starts to be interesting. You start to say, okay, all right, well, it's not what I thought it was. This is not the same kind of a setup trap that I thought it was. It's a different kind of setup trap. And let's try to figure that out. And so I was along for the ride. I think Star Trek is at its best when they do these kinds of warring faction storylines. I think it's just really good to see the political maneuvering, to see the gamesmanship, to see how the plot develops when it comes between the Federation and Starfleet, and you can name anybody outside that either we have beef with or have sensitive relationships with, or things are on shaky ground. Or sometimes we're actually in their favor, but there's still beef, with the case of the Bajorans. You see Starfleet stepping in on behalf of the Bajorans, but yet there's still resistance there because they're distrustful of the Federation. So, in general, when you deal with diplomacy and the Federation, that's when I think Star Trek is at its best, and so I like to see those episodes.
Me too. And that's totally, you know, Ron Moore's wheelhouse, and that's totally Deep Space Nine later years wheelhouse. And for me, I love to see that kind of stuff. That's why my favorite board game is a game called Diplomacy, and it takes place basically in 1901, and it's supposed to be the events that lead up to World War I. It's all these different countries within Europe, and it's all just about who teams up with who backstabs what, like it's all about these different factions in different countries, and the way you maneuver and the way you talk to each other and the way you strategize gives you more power. And this is what the Romulans are all about. That's what the Dominion Wars are all about. That's, the kind of stuff that I love, and that's Ronald D. Moore all over the place. Now, I will say, I have more nitpicks for this episode than maybe any other episode ever. There are so many. I mean, first of all,
you have to suspend belief on some things.
Right. But first of all, when Geordi and Ro are going to go transport to the Romulan ship, and there's the two of them, and they say, oh, we'll give you your phasers, whatever. Then cut to Romulan ship, and there's four of them that transport. There's Riker there, Worf's there too. And I'm like, wait, I was under the impression that just Geordi and Ro were going by themselves. We saw nothing that had anything to do with Worf or Riker. Like Worf wasn't even in the room.
I don't know that Worf was in the room, but I did see Riker there because there was that exchange between Ro and Riker.
He was there, but he was not going on the transporter pad with them. He was sitting there going, hey, don't go with them.
I saw him. I think I saw Riker get on the transporter. Worf, I can't
Worf wasn't even in the scene, man.
Yeah, Worf I cannot recall. But I can recall Riker stepping on the transporter pad and what looked to be like a phaser on his hip. So I was thinking at that moment.
It was a tricorder.
Yeah, it must have been a tricorder. But it looked, for my eye instantly thought it was phaser for a second. And I thought, didn't he just say that we couldn't bring phasers?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Riker was on board. I cannot vouch for Worf. I don't know where he came in that scene.
He just appeared.
He just appeared. But, for all intents and purposes, I think I know what your biggest nitpick is going to be.
Oh, this is good stuff. Well, okay. So for the record, I actually love this episode. I think it's so freaking good because we finally get what Riker's been wanting, a deep dive into Ro Laren in a way. I mean, we've gotten to know her better in other episodes, but this was one that was centered on Geordi and Ro. And I really like that. And I like their relationship. And I feel like in a previous relationship or in a previous episode, they worked well together as well, because I remember writing in my notes GNR, Geordi and Ro. I just do shorthand. And I'm like, Guns N' Roses, cool. I like this crew, So now Geordi and Ro are GNR to me. So I'm like rooting for them all the way. But I just really like when we get to know these other characters a little bit. Give Ro a little bit more. Give Guinan some more. Give Chief O'Brien some more. More on that in a moment. Things like that. So for the record, my nitpicks notwithstanding, I love this episode.
I love this episode too, and I think even my whatever I'm going to say is I think is the leading nitpick, but it's just it's a silly science thing that people who watch things just think, oh, that's how would that happen? Right?
I think it might be the same as mine. Let's hear it.
I mean, it's a basic science thing, and I'm going to preface this by saying I do love this episode, and I would I love the episode, and my nitpick is just it's just the problem solver scientific mind of the way I analyze things through the scientific method and say, hey, is that possible? Is that within the law of physics? Is that within the law of possibilities?
In universe too, because that's also a caveat. Yeah. Like sometimes you say, hey, this wouldn't happen, and they go, it's but also Klingons don't exist. But it's like, but
Yeah.
yes, but in universe, we've
Yes.
accepted Klingons and lasers and whatever exist. But it has not been established that, what's the nitpick?
And the nitpick is that, for me at least, that they were able to walk through things,
I know, yes, it's
through
the same as
material,
me. Yes, keep
right?
going.
And how is the floor holding them up,
Thank
essentially,
you. That
right?
like that punched me in the mouth when I first watched this as a kid. I was like, well, why are they not float? How can they walk through walls, but their feet are hitting the ground? And I'm hearing footsteps to boot. I'm hearing when they walk
Yeah.
away,
And
it
I'm
doesn't
sure
work.
there is a scientific way that somebody smarter than me, like Dr. Mohammed Noor, would be able to express some kind of relativity of gravity on, even if they had some mass, some degree of mass, that gravity would be able to hold them down to some degree.
But yeah,
But
but it would hold them down to the center of wherever the gravitational pull is. That's not the floor. Like there's no.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
it's.
I know, I know,
I
I
know.
know.
I know. We're gonna.
And,
It'll stick with you
what
forever.
made it
Trust me.
worse is what made it worse is when they pushed the Romulan through the wall
Yeah.
and he floated out into space. And I'm thinking, yeah, well then you would sink through the bottom of the floor and float out into space too. Like,
Yes.
what's holding you there? And so, yes, I mean, that's a nitpick, and you have to suspend a little bit of whatever your conventional belief system is. I don't know how the computer systems work on the Enterprise. I don't know how the gravity is aligned in that particular ship and how its parameters are set for. I don't know that they have any mass if they're both cloaked and phased out, as they say. So I don't know if there's any mass involved with that. I mean, there's a lot of things. I let that go because the story is good. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
but there were things I wanted a little bit more of. And I'll tell you what, they kept leaving hanging open this Rolaren's question about what Riker's thoughts are about her. And they kept it open and they kept it open and they kept it open. I thought, okay, eventually it's going to be a moment when we get to see it. And I wanted to see it. I wanted to see that moment, and it would have been a perfect opportunity, in my opinion, to have Counselor Troy, who is the counselor. They're dealing with loss here. This is two of their very regular, stable crew members that we're very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable and familiar with. So to see Counselor Troy counseling would be great, and to have a heart-to-heart moment with Riker,
That's
like,
true.
you know, tell me, I can see that you're tense, Riker. Just tell me how you feel and this and that. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. And it would have been a perfect moment for him to open up about it, a little bit more about how he felt about the loss, and so those were the kind of, I think, missed opportunities, both for the chance to use Troy a little bit more in this episode, because I think Troy should have been used as somebody who's helping people deal with this loss. We just lost two very important people. Um, and then also have that conversation, that one-on-one, because we know of Troy and Riker's history, and the complicated kind of love triangle or whatever there is between him and everybody else in Troy. And then that would have been talked about a little bit in the scene. It would have been nice. Um, but for the most part, I mean, it had the Romulan aspect, which I thought was fantastic. I like
Mm-hmm.
that. It had, and they kind of gained my trust a little bit when the guy said, "I'm just a doctor. The captain's dead, and
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. You can take that piece and take it to the.
Yeah.
I
What do
don't
I
care.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, like, what do I know? I don't know. Just fit whatever you got to fix. Just help me out." And so it looked like they were vulnerable. It looked like they were actually involved in some kind of mess, and they
Yeah.
needed actual help. So I thought that part was convincing to me, because I did initially say, "Oh, here we go, walking into a trap."
Right. But this is the beautiful writing of Ronald D. Moore, as you're saying. Like
Yes,
he knows the fans are going to immediately suspect foul play. So how do I get them to not suspect foul play so that this twist at the end does work?
yes, and that worked for me too. And so I see Roll Aaron says this is a bad idea, and then the moment there where Riker checks her, excuse me, I didn't hear what you said. Knowing damn well he heard what she said, right? But it's one of those moments, where he gets to be, where you get to see the tension between the two. I love the tension between Roll Aaron and Riker. I think it's healthy, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, and so that moment of tension where he's like, "Excuse me, say that again," and she's like, never mind. It was a nice moment. And so, I like this episode. It's very well written. And I really, besides that big physics, debate or, point that we have of contention, other than that, I like this episode. I thought it was really good.
Let me ask you this, Sirach. What do you think Riker was going to say at her funeral? Because clearly it was going to be more than just like, hey, it was nice having a Bajoran. She was a good pilot. There's some kind of personal feeling that was bubbling up or going to come out. What do you think it was?
I think he was going to reveal that, he had some deeper feelings for her other than what people knew as their professional relationship. And I think that she was concerned about that being the narrative, to be honest with you. It didn't seem like she was saying, like eagerly anticipating what he was going to say in a positive way. It was more like, what are you going to what are you going to tell him? Like, what are you going to talk about? It's like there's some things that I don't maybe want you to talk about.
All
And,
right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then they hooked up and they kind of made it be known that
They'll just
she was
leave
under.
that and they'll leave that behind. They only
Yeah.
did it because they were out of their minds or.
Yes. Yes. And so I think she's like are you going to be like out here running around saying stuff that I don't really necessarily want out there? You know what I mean? Um,
You know,
eh,
see, this
yeah.
is how I read it, and I think yours has a lot of validity. But I read it a little differently, or maybe more likely a combination of the two, which is that whatever additional feelings Riker has for Ro, but refuses to admit it, and instead bears down hard on her, if you know what I'm saying. And I believe that she shares similar feelings for him, but refuses to tell him. It's kind of like those things where like these two very stubborn, tough people both are refusing to admit that whether they like each other romantically or whether they just admit that they actually have respect for each other. That happens a lot too. Um, and so I viewed it as like she really wants to know. Like she doesn't want everybody in the world to know, like to your point. She doesn't want, but she wants to. So she's equally petrified that he's going to say something she doesn't want out there, but also very curious, like, is he finally going to, is he going to admit this thing that he refuses to admit to me? Or, it's kind of like if you really like somebody, but it hasn't been said, you really want to know if that person's going to say it or admit it, or if you're just imagining things, or, like you really, if it's somebody you don't like, then you don't really care if they admit they like you. You're like, okay, that's uncomfortable or whatever. But if it's somebody you like, you really want to know, like, how do you feel? What do you think? What's going on? And again, it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be just respect or friendship. But I think that, and we all want to know too. We're like, yeah, tell us what's going on, because then maybe she'll admit to Geordi, thinking that she's dead. She'll admit to Geordi, like, I felt the same way about him. And then at the end of the episode, she could be like, don't say anything, Geordi, or you really will be dead. So, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I can see what you're saying, and there I do sense some elements of her curiosity, and but it was a way almost like I felt I'm gonna find this information out, whatever it is, right? Let's say he does reveal that in a stage that I can't do anything about it. Like this is like I'm
Mm,
dead. She believes she's dead, right?
yeah, which is great. Yeah.
Right. So you're dead, and now you're gonna find out that you could have been romantically on another level with somebody. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think there's an aspect of that too, right? So it's like almost a frustration. Like, what are you going to say? Like, what do now? I got to find out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's great, and you also touched upon the fact that she thinks she's dead, which I think makes it even better that she thinks she's dead. She's the religious type. She's Bjorn. Geordi's the scientist. He's like, dude, we're not dead. You really think, so that's another great,
Yes.
combination. That's another great dichotomy. The only other person that would be great for that would be Worf, right? If it was Geordi and Worf, because Worf is also very religious or whatever. But
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny the way Geordi says, "There's no way we're dead," and she's like, "Yeah, we're dead." He's like, "You think you think I'm blind in death?" I thought, first of all, that's a great way to look at it. No pun intended. But like, can you imagine how rude that would be if someone, like, say, has chronic back pain and they die and they wake up and they go, well, at least, and they stand up, they're like, my back's killing me still. What? Even in Stovocor, my back's killing me? Or like, and I got to shave too still? Are you joking? Well, like, and I'm actually 98 still. Like, I don't go back to like 25 and like party. Like, it would be so rude if like you die and you die in the same way, like you're missing limbs, you got chronic
Yeah.
back pain and toe fungus. It's terrible.
Yeah, I did rewind that moment there. He's like, "What do you think? I'm a blind ghost with clothes?"
Well, the clothes I can understand,
Yeah.
but
Well, Jordy wants to walk around
yeah, he
like he
does.
was in his birthday suit, looking at everything. So that's funny. But yeah, I did like that. I thought it was great. I liked the two different approaches that they took. I mean, in one sense, you would not know the difference. Like, how do you know the difference? And
Totally.
I thought he was just using logic. And by the way, what another really thing that I loved about this, I like watching Data and Jordy work together to problem solve.
So
And
cool.
this was like them working together, but not.
It was so good though. Because we're like rooting for Data for Geordi. He's like, come on,
Yes,
Data, put it together. We're like, come on, you can do it, Data. Oh, that's so
yeah.
good.
It was so good to see them, in the thing. And he's like, "Yeah, what is that?" And he's looking over his shoulder, and they're like, he's like, "Oh, when I walk through this, you're picking it up there. Oh." And just like the two of them figuring it out without actually being in the same,
Yeah.
dimension, let's say, at the same time. I thought that was really clever writing. It was great. I told you I love watching Data and Jordy because I think they're. If I had to, if I had an issue, like some kind of mechanical problem solving issue, I don't think there's two better people to have than Jordy and Data.
No
I don't
way.
think there
Yeah,
is.
that's it. That's it. Geordi and Data, and maybe one more person that we can talk about on the other side because it's time for our break. We'll be right back on. You're going to find out who that third person is who is
Yeah.
missing from this
All
episode
right.
on
All
the seventh rule. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Can't Phase Me Lofton.
right. Unfazable, so please don't try to phase me.
Oh, some Snoop, right? Is that some old Snoop?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, here are the Trivioids. There are a ton of them in this one for some reason. A Romulan vessel is facing an imminent core breach. The pressure in the containment chamber has increased to 15 millicols in the last 2 minutes. Ensign Rowe wakes up at section 23 Baker near sickbay. Beverly Crusher hates making out, death certificates. Planning and conducting a memorial service is the duty of a best friend. Geordi wakes up in the Arboretum with a splitting headache. Bajorans used to call spirits Borjas. Riker wants to say a few things about Ensign Rowe at her memorial. Even in death, Rowe is intimidated by Captain Picard. That was really good. The muon feedback waves not showing up on any of the engine's displays. That's a weird one. The first time Captain Picard worked with Geordi, he made some offhanded remark about the shuttle's efficiency. Ensign Rowe shoots her phaser directly into Riker's forehead. Yeah, really quick, that part about being intimidated by Picard, even in death, I think we've all had that where like I don't want to call it trauma, but it's soft trauma, like whether you're afraid of a bully or intimidated by a parent or a teacher, or there's something there that even when you're at a point where they can't hurt you anymore, where you're not at that school anymore, when blah 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 blah, whatever it is, you still have that thing. It's kind of like how at circuses, I don't know if this is still done, but the way they would tie a rope to a baby elephant's foot, right? Stick it to a peg so that the elephant can't get away, right? Then as the years go by, the elephant is this giant beast still being held by this tiny rope that it could totally break, but it doesn't know that it could break it because as a baby, it tried a million times and could never get away. So they've just accepted that this thing is unbreakable, So it's this weird, horrible psychological thing. But anyway, it's kind of like that where, she's just like, even in death, she's still intimidated by this guy, which I thought was a really good line.
It was a good line. It also, I think works in other kinds of relationships. I tell people when they meet somebody and they're involved in a dating scenario and they get into a lot of arguments with that person, I tell them, well, that's going to be the nature of your relationship pretty much. There's this kind of establishment of what a where the relationship will be energy wise. And so if you're somebody that is arguing all the time, it's going to always be arguing. It's not going the arguing's not going to go away. That's what I'm saying. But if you get along, the get along stuff could go also as well. So, it just depends on the energy there. And I feel like in this particular energy, she's a subordinate. She looks at him, with respect because of, he's older than her. He outranks her. He's been kind of like a father figure kind of role model to her in some ways. So yeah, that made sense to me. It just, but you mentioned earlier that, she shot Riker in the head, and I wanted to shoot Riker in the head face because I'm like, bro, it's a funeral and you pick up the trombone and start,
Yep. He just grabs that bone and starts playing, man.
Leave your bone alone for a second.
She's dead, dude.
She's dead, man. It's not a place time to jump in there.
Yeah, but that was the theme, and I do wonder if Roe was intimidated by Riker too at first, but then now she's like, dude, bro, I've seen you naked. You can't talk to me that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like when he says, "Do you have a problem, Ensign?" She's like, "Oh, it's Ensign now, is it? So sorry, Commander." Anyway, look, here was the third person. If you need something figured out that's difficult and scientific, it's Data and Geordi, for the win forever and ever. But if you have a third person in there, somebody that straddles two series, Chief Miles O'Brien is that third person, not just on Deep Space Nine, but right here in the Next Generation. And I believe that this role was written for him and he was just not available because suddenly there's this other transporter chief. And every time there's another transporter chief, we think, O'Brien probably wasn't available unless it had like one line, right? But if there's anything, it's always O'Brien, especially because this was like the biggest transporter chief. Like suddenly the
Yeah.
transporter chief is in main engineering with them. She's on the main bridge with them. Suddenly
Yeah.
she's everywhere. Clearly this was written for Miles O'Brien for Colomini, and he wasn't available, so they had to create a new character that suddenly is like everywhere and then never seen again.
Yeah, I wondered. I wondered that too. I was like, "Why isn't this O'Brien?" And then I thought as I was watching it, maybe because it was such a bad accident that they didn't want the blame falling on
True.
somebody that we like so much. You know what
I
I
did
mean?
consider that as well. But I did think that the actress that played the character was really good. So I certainly didn't miss him, but I just feel like maybe they intended it for him. Unless that's true, that they don't want to make it look like he might mess up. But then he could show up in like other scenes and clean up her mess, you know?
Yeah, I didn't. The transporter chief didn't have enough panic or desperation in her voice when she lost him. She's like,
I noticed that too.
my bad."
Yeah. She goes, they're lost, Captain. I'm like, you don't care? You're not worried about killing two of your friends and maybe getting fired? I don't know. Like,
It was like really. It was like,
she's like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. She's like, what did you try? Hey! I got my lunch break coming
yeah.
up.
I cut up
I
some
got
carrot
stuff to
sticks
do.
right now, and they're getting warm. So I got to get to those.
Yeah, I'll let you know in 15 minutes what the pattern buffer says. Okay.
They're not going to get any more dead, Captain. Can we just?
I don't see the rush. I really don't see the rush. There was very little panic and very little I need more power to this. Give me some more tachyon beams are failing. I need
Right.
72% spike. Some just like a panic mode. Where you're like,
Right. And I usually attribute that to somebody's only week on set. They don't, she doesn't have the frame of reference of like, is this something that happens all the time? Is this something that, are these really two very important characters? Like, unless somebody's really explaining to her, like, hang on, cut. Hey, this is like a really big deal. This never
see,
happens.
what they do is they
like
separate your molecules and put them in a program and then reconstruct those molecules at a different, I don't know if they sat her down and explained.
But, give her like the frame of reference of like how important and big this scene really is. This is a major deal. Like some main
I just
characters are
needed to see a
dying.
little bit more panic in that
Totally.
moment because it was a little too cavalier, a little too casual. Like, oh, I lost him. I don't know.
Yeah,
They were
I
here.
agree.
and then by the time, okay, so I hate to nitpick without giving some credit to the good stuff that I really enjoyed about this. And one of the things I really enjoyed was Data talking about his friendship with Geordi. And he was saying the kinds of things that you would want your friend to say about you. You know what I mean? And the kind of first him taking initiative to say, may I have the opportunity to plan the funeral for Geordi? Like he took the initiative and asked for that. He said, I consider him to be my best friend. So he announces him as his best friend to the captain and asks for the responsibility of holding the funeral for him. And then deliberates over what to say and how he feels about him and his time with him, really doing his friendship honor. And I thought Data showed some of the most human characteristics in this episode by the way he actually showed the most, in my opinion, sense of loss for a character than anybody else. And he's the android, but I felt like his sense of loss was deeper than the captain's, deeper than even Riker, who was a little elusive about it. But the real sense of loss I felt came from Data.
Yeah, that's a good point. And he wants to do it justice. He says, look, this is what I believe my duty is to be. Here's what I'm going to put a spin on this in a way that I think Geordi would have liked. There are a lot of cool things. Although I will say that Jonathan Frakes had a good moment. I believe it was in the captain's ready room with Picard, and Picard and he were talking, and there was like a close up on Picard's face, and then pan over to a close up on Riker's face. And Riker had, Jonathan Frakes really acted the hell out of that moment, showing a lot of, pain and just the seriousness of, you could just really see it. It's tough to describe, but like when it panned over to him, I was like, wow, that's really good. Like just the face that he was making and how he just seemed like really broken up and like had a lot on his shoulders. It was really good. That was
No, he definitely was a very close second place
Yeah.
as far as people who felt lost. I didn't feel that, Troy had one moment where she, where Captain Picard looks at her and says, do you feel anything?
Yeah.
Like,
And she just shakes her head. That was good.
That was a good moment. She delivered that. I mean, it wasn't even any words, but it was good. Like the feeling of like, I don't even feel anybody.
Does that mean she doesn't have any lines in this episode? Did she just shake her head? I feel like she said something.
She said something before that, but that was a great
to Riker.
For her.
Like was she like? I think she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that your friend is dead, Will."
Yeah, that was.
Anyway,
that was the. Yeah, that was the original line. No, so yeah, I thought those moments were played well. But I really thought that Data, when he says my best friend, those words hit me in a really deep way. You can tell he has a real strong connection to Geordi, and watching them work together again, another highlight for me. And I like the moment when Geordi goes like this. He's like, he gets excited because he basically he discovers something with Data about the trail of whatever it is, and he goes to his comm badge and he goes LaForge to Row, Ensign, and then he realizes that it doesn't work, right? Because so I thought that was really funny. It was a good moment. It was a small little thing. He gets excited. He's with Data. And then he hits his comm badge and he says, LaForge to Ensign Row. And then realizes, oh, wait a minute. We're not on the grid right now. I thought that was another clever moment.
Yeah, Geordi had a really good moment, or I should say LeVar, of acting through his visor again, because that's like the toughest thing in the world. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was some kind of surprise, or he had some kind of reaction or some kind of acting moment that I thought was really impressive, again through the visor. I can't find what it was, but big shout out to him for that. There was, oh wait, here it is. When Geordi when Geordi wakes up, and we know we can guess what his story is right away. Once we see him wake up, we know, okay, this happened to him too. And he's walking around with like shock and confusion without the use of his eyes. It's just so good that he can do that just with like his eyebrows and the way he moves his mouth, like, what, without lines. Really, really good. That's so hard to do. But I'll tell you, I thought of you a lot in this episode. Because I was like, I bet you Sirach is liking this episode. And there was a moment that I said, I bet right here Sirach is sucked into this episode. And that moment was when Ro is watching, towards the beginning, Beverly and Picard talking about Geordi and Ro's deaths. And she's watching them going like, wait, what? And she screams, she's like, I'm not dead, And then Picard turns around and walks right through her, which is the first time they passed through anything. And she's like, what? And then it like goes to a commercial. And I was like, I bet you right here Sirach sucked in, like, all right, I'm in for the ride here, like, because it's emotional, like you're getting these emotional things. It's a Twilight Zone kind of what's going on kind of thing. It just at that point, I feel like you got really sucked in. I feel like most people would have.
Yeah, no, I was. I mean, yeah, this did give me Twilight Zone vibes. Um, and and actually, I was thinking of even partly editing some of the soundtrack when I saw it, because I thought when she was reaching for the stuff on the desk, it was like, can't touch this.
What do
But
you
no,
mean?
but
From
but so
London to
no,
the Bay.
yeah, get dusted. Ding, ding, ding. It's funny how MC Hammer has made so many debuts on our Star Trek review show.
Right, because it was
hammock
also
hammock
Hammock
time.
Time. Yeah. Now we got to
But
do
shut
the
up.
other one, the original. She's a super freak, right?
Yeah, shout out to the legend, the Bay Area legend.
Yes, sir.
Anyways,
Fremont,
but
California.
yeah,
That's where he lived.
yeah.
Yeah, I went to his
But no,
house.
I instantly thought this was great, and I really liked the moment there, where the Romulan was revealed to also be
Yeah,
a cloaked, phased individual, right? Because the whole time, they had him in the foreground of the camera, and they were moving the camera around. By the way, shout out to David Carson, who directed this. I thought
right.
he did a fantastic job as well,
Yeah,
um, transitioning from the Romulan ship to the ship to also all of the phase work and going through
yeah.
stuff. I thought it looked
Me
legit.
too. A plus. But yeah, as you were saying, we kind of get a sense of like, what's with this guy? Why is this guy in the foreground? Why is he looking so suspicious? Why are we being led to believe that we need to watch this guy? Right? We
Yeah,
just from the
yeah,
camera shots. Yeah.
just from the camera shots, and I was like, he must be in charge, right? Because right, because the other two come and walk together, and they said, make sure the Enterprise does this and do this, and they have to charge their engines up, and when they leave, they'll blow up. And they walk away, and he's on the, he's got the face. And so my point is, he looked like the main captain or whoever was in charge of the Romulan operation. No real backstory on how he got phased. Was he an undercover agent? I mean, because imagine if this guy if the Romulans have this capability, okay, and they already have a guy who's cloaked. The only thing they would need now is to be able to have the ability to decloak him, because
Yes.
he would have unlimited access to information, and nobody would know, because he'd be going around walking through walls and just learning all the secrets of the Starfleet and Federation. And and if he's able to be decloaked, then he can relay the information back. Otherwise, they don't know how to,
Mhm.
can't communicate with him.
Right, right. There were so many, we're already almost
So
out
I
of
thought
time
I,
here.
I thought this guy would be wanting to be decloaked himself. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
he was. I thought this guy's stuck in this
For God
in
knows
this
how
world.
long. Right.
Right. Like, so there wasn't much backstory there, because I'm thinking when I first see that he is one of the cloaked individuals, I'm thinking maybe he wants to like join in with them just so he can find out how to solve this problem, because he's been
Right.
cloaked for who knows how long.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
I thought that was a lot there.
Yeah, they could have taken that a lot of ways. He could have also been their key to unlocking the mystery. He could be like, hey, I've been working on this for days. There's this and that, but I can't figure this out. And then Geordi goes, oh, I know. But, there are a lot of ways they could have taken that. It was a little surprising
Yes.
there. But I
Yeah.
will say that we're running low on time, but there were some things where this episode had really good moments. And these really good moments were a great combination of writing, directing, and acting. One of
Hmm.
those was when Ro comes into the bridge and basically says goodbye to the bridge, without saying a word. She walks in and she just kind of looks around. She touches her old seat. She touches
Hmm.
her console. She kind of says goodbye, but I'm like, she's saying goodbye to a bunch of extras because none of the main guys are there. But it was still like a beautiful moment that really worked, and we understood exactly how she was feeling. And then the other good moments were, of course, at the end when they're in 10 forward, and the first one where Picard and Worf, or was it Picard and Worf? Yeah, Picard and Data first see them just for like half a flash, right? And then
Hmm.
Geordi's like, Data, it's me. I'm over here. Can you? We're here. We're here. I don't know why, but that was just such a good moment. Like that frantic, like, come on, you know.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when they actually do get phased in, and they do see them, and Data saves the day. Like it really actually made me very happy. And it was such a great combination of writing, directing, and acting. Everybody pulling their own weight to make these like really magical, memorable moments that affect you emotionally, which is rare.
Yeah, I was emotionally affected too. In that moment there, I was cheering on Data. I
Mhm.
was feeling the same way Geordi was feeling. Like, come on, Data, you can figure it out.
Yeah,
You,
yeah,
you did it. You just did the sweep of the what did they say,
yeah.
the anions. He says increase the anions by 6,000 parts per million or whatever it was. And
Hmm.
I was like, it's the anions. Data, you know what it is. You can figure it out. So yes,
Yeah,
I did feel a sense of satisfaction when it all came together in that moment, and uh,
right.
it was great having the using the disruptor to create a big enough blast to get people's
Smart.
attention. All of those things were really good.
Right. And also, Ricard or Riker was so sad. He said, "Who's cutting anions in here?" Because but it's time for our home run of the episode, Sirach Lofton. Who gets this one? That's a toughie.
Yeah, it's a toughie. It's a tough one. Yeah,
It really is.
there's really there's no. It's hard because there are a lot of people really good in this
Yeah.
episode. I'm gonna give it to Ron Moore, Ronald D. Moore. He
Right.
just wrote a really fantastic episode, kept me interested. I know there's plenty of love to go around for everybody. You got to just pick somebody, and I'm gonna give it to Ron Moore.
Yeah. Especially because he did it on his own. Mostly,
Yeah,
obviously, as you know, in the writers' room, you're right. They all just kind of chipped in a little bit and maybe rewrites and stuff. Who knows? But for me, I think it's LeVar and Michelle Forbes, just because I was just rooting for them. I loved them. When I look back, I hadn't seen this episode in 20 years. When I look back and think about this episode, I think of the two of them and them touching, having that moment where they first touch and they're happy, and then Geordi stuffing his face at the end. It's so funny. It's so great. It's beautiful. And they're such different people. Great acting. Home runs for them. If I'm allowed to do two.
yeah,
Here are some people, more than two, that we'd like to say thank you to. Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, aka Crewman Guy, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom, Cassandra G., Chuck A., Chris Garris, Mark Zutkoff, Lamaya Lancaster, Cool Town, Sean Mouch, Amiram Misne, and of course, Jason M. Oken, who's got some thoughts on this. Stick around, everybody. We've got
yeah.
the free for all up next, and we will be right back on the seventh rule. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the free for all with Melissa Longo.
Hello.
Also, we have Jason M. Oken, Kel Surprise.
Everybody.
It's not really pronounced that way. Chuck A is the TNG fanatic.
Hi there.
Carrie Schwent always has the awesomest background that's Romulan and a cool neutral zone shirt. Allison Leach Hyde has her favorite baseball team, the Shakar Salots. Mark Zutkoff hates that shirt, but he loves TNG. Chris Garris is here. He's got a collar. He's dressed up.
Yes. Hello.
Chris McGee also is here. He's got his Ukraine flag as always. He's the Dark Lord. And the Matt Boardman says, I want to wear my Be Kind shirt too.
Hello.
Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Probably like around an 8, maybe like a 7.9, 7.9. Yeah, maybe even an 8.0.
Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
I must say, yeah, I'm going to do
A3.
8.5. 8.1.
Wow. Really? So we're between 8 and 8.5, everybody is. Melissa, are they even in the right ballpark?
One person got it right on the nose.
Who was that?
It was 8.3.
8.3.
Who
Good
said
job,
8.3?
Chris McGee. It was Chris McGee.
Oh,
Celebrating. All right, good stuff. Everybody was very close, though. Did we get any non-appearance mentions? I didn't catch any this time. Okay, guess not. What about some kind of or some sorts of? Seems like this episode's ripe for it.
And you would be correct. LaForge hit them both. He first, when Ro tells him that they're dead, he says, "Is that some kind of joke?"
That's right.
And then shortly afterwards said, "What are you saying? That we're some sort of spirits?" So he got one of each.
Very good. All right, Melissa, please get us started off on the right track by giving us some kind of thoughts of yours.
Well, I have some kind of thoughts about this episode, and that is I had a really nice time watching this episode. It was fun, and I particularly love Geordi's line when he said, "Are you saying I'm some blind ghost with clothes?" It's quite a crack up during that line. And I kept repeating it over and over and over again. It's funny.
Wow.
It's funny. It's really funny. And the way he said it, it was hilarious. But anyway, I think Ro and Geordi work really well together. They have a really good, I don't know, good chemistry. They have a good way of speaking to each other with respect, and then they listen to each other. And it's really good. I enjoyed watching them. I enjoyed Ro in this episode. I thought Michelle Forbes did an outstanding job of contemplating whether contemplating her beliefs in the afterlife. And I liked the Romulan stuff too. They're always treacherous. And but I liked it. I feel like they dropped the ball again on Troy, because I thought she could probably be useful in this episode, given that they weren't dead and that she could probably sense their presence. But and he's so cute. He's what a cutie pie. He's a really good guy, and I like that guy so much, and I like that he's best friends with Data. And I do have some nitpicks that I have questions about on the other side, but overall I enjoyed this episode very much.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Melissa Longo. That is a good point. I've personally never seen a ghost with clothes on. And also, I'm sure that's how Beverly prefers
ghost.
it.
You should really put some clothes on when you see a ghost. That would be a
right. Jason M. Oken is here. Have you seen any ghosts with clothes on? And what do you think of this episode?
Yes and yes. Strange as it is, the episode moves along pretty fast. I mean, Melissa said that. It's kind of a romp, if you will. It has certain leaps of logic, and we can talk about a lot of that later. Why they don't float through the decks is an interesting question, and how they breathe the air as well. But we'll put that. We'll put that one aside. It's just it's. I think it's a very well written script by Ron Moore, and a lot of it has to do with the actual dialogue, the characters, the way they communicate, the actual interaction between the characters, and it also helps that the actors, the regulars, have been at it for so many years now. They're so comfortable with their characters, and it just comes off very, very naturally. And Michelle Forbes is great at what she does. And it's just it's certainly a fun watch. I think it was pretty well directed by David Carson. If you look at the first shot on the Romulan ship, I did a double take. It's virtually a duplicate of what he did on the SSS Enterprise, on the damaged Enterprise. It's virtually the same shot. I had to go and look it up. It is kind of uncanny, so you can recognize his style. But again, things move along pretty quickly. It's exciting. It's fun. And yeah, there's a lot more to say, and I'll save that for later.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. Definitely some nitpicks to be had later, that's for sure. Chuck A. is the resident TNG fanatic. What do you think of this one?
Really love this episode. Geordi and Ro had such chemistry. It was a really well-written episode. I don't know if anybody caught it, but the Romulan who played Varel was Susanna Thompson. She wound up playing and rejoined the DS9 episode with Dax. And then she played 3 episodes, I believe it was, in Star Trek Voyager as the Borg Queen. And she's a really, really good actress. She has a lot of acting credits. I really enjoyed the very last scene where Geordi is eating for an hour, and the smiles on Ro's face was really wonderful. And she was talking about her beliefs and about, being dead, and she thought she was dead. The other scene that I particularly liked too was the 10 forward scene where they're trying to be visual to everybody, and then when they finally are visual, we got all the hugs from the crew and smiles all around. It was a very good scene, and Brent Spiner was also really excellent in the episode as always, trying to figure out what was going on with the cloak. He didn't know at the time it was cloaking, and all the setting. Was it Chief Rosmer? I think her name was. They were trying to get the anions. I think they called it anion sweep. Was it, or anions? That was really well done too. Really enjoyed the episode. Thought it was really one of the better ones. I will not miss it when they show it on syndication or on Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Yeah, what was her name? Like Brosman or something like that?
Brosmer.
Something like that. Rosner or Rosman?
Brosmer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, TNG Fanatic, aka Chuck A. Great stuff. Carrie Schwent, coolest background in town. What'd you think of this one?
I love this one. I love all kinds of ghost story type episodes. Yeah, we'll leave that there. But as long as you don't think too hard, I think about the ghost mechanics, like Jason was pointing out, and like my husband loves to point out every time we watch anything involving ghosts and they're walking through walls. He has to point out, why don't they fall through the floor? Don't think about it so hard. It's much more enjoyable if you can just go with the flow and enjoy it. And I do. I think it's fantastic. Ro and Geordi are great together. Are absolutely great together. And it's a whole episode of Ro, and I love Ro. Don't really care for the headband too much, but I don't hate it. I think her hair looks better without it. But I love that actress, and I love how she's sitting in the chair in the final scene, the one behind Melissa with the one leg up. I've sat like that so many times. It is very comfortable. It's a very comfortable position to sit in, especially if you're sitting in a chair like that for a while. And if you're sitting there for an hour watching somebody eat, you're gonna want to get comfortable. And yeah, the guest stars were great. I will highlight a couple more things of Susanna Thompson's that I also enjoy her for, in addition to being Voyager's Borg Queen. She's Oliver Queen's mother on the CW show Arrow that I very, very much enjoyed, a whole Green Arrow TV series. And also, I was reminded as I was scrolling through her IMDb that she was in a season 4 episode called Fifi's First Christmas of, you guessed it, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. I can't resist a Dr. Quinn shout out. Yeah, it's a fun little episode. And the other Romulan, played by Thomas Capacci, he is one of a handful of actors who have been on all 4 of the Trek series from that era. And my favorite of his credits is he is in the Voyager episode The Thaw. And I really, really like that. I really like that episode. The very end of that episode, especially, I think it's the best part. But Thomas is fantastic in it. I thought he makes a great Romulan. I thought Susanna looked excellent as a Romulan as well. And a fun fact that I found when I was scrolling through IMDb, on Beverly's computer, when Ro is passing her hand through it, if you pause it on that screen, it's got her appointment calendar for the day. And one of her appointments is an annual career counseling session with Commander Brandon Braga.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
That's pretty funny.
I read that. I had to really get my cell phone cameras focusing to work, and it's a little difficult on my tablet when you pause it to see. But yep, he's definitely on there. She's got a lot of counseling sessions on her calendar. I wonder if she's sharing duties with Troy. Who knows? But one other bit that I enjoyed was Data and Worf talking about the Clink. He's happy for Geordi. He's got a place among the honored dead. I enjoyed that little bit, and I couldn't help it. Reminded me of a short scene in Revenge of the Sith with Yoda and Anakin's freaking out about Padme, and Yoda's telling him, "You rejoice for those who transform into the Force. Warn them, do not. It's them, do not." I think Worf would probably be behind that kind of sentiment. And to work my way up to the limerick, I can definitely relate to Ro wanting desperately to know what Riker was going to say about her. She keeps getting teased about it, and she keeps not finding out about it. Happens with me and my husband all the time. He'll say something and then he'll go, "Never mind," and I have to hound him until he tells me what he said, because I have to know. So I can definitely relate to Ro in that, and that's where the inspiration for today's limerick comes from. I still wish I knew what you would have said if it turned out that I really was dead. We did hook up that one time, but we weren't in our right minds. I can't get the what ifs out of my head.
Saucy. Great stuff. Let us know in the comments below. What do you think of Ro Laren's headband? Like it? Hate it? Think it makes her look like a rascal? I don't know. Thanks very much, Carrie Schwent. Allison Leach Hyde is up next. What do you think of this one, Allison?
I really, really enjoy this episode. I think it is a great Geordi episode, who is my favorite. And I love that we don't just get to see him work out a problem like with Ro, like they're working together, which is great. But he's also working it out on his own with his best friend Data, even though Data can't talk to him. And I thought how it was written and how it was acted was really great, because Geordi is still working with Data, even though Data can't hear him or talk to him. And their friendship is so strong that Geordi's like, "Okay, I know how you work. If I do this repeatedly, like, you're going to notice this." And I really love that. And I love the scene with Data and Worf when Data is asking about, "Hey, I've been, looking into different services for memorials through different cultures, and I don't know what to do because this is what I've seen here." And then Worf talking about, "Hey, I'm not mourning. Like, my friend has gone someplace that we all want to go. That's really great." And the line that Data has describing Geordi like gets me every time is he accepted me for what I am, and that I have learned is friendship. And I'm like, oh, so great. So I love that. So I do. I love this episode. It's fun. It goes by really fast. Both Geordi and Ro are great to follow. And yeah, I mean it's fun. And it also makes you think, especially at the end with Ro talking about revisiting her faith and how this near death / death experience, because she did leave this plane of existence. So it can make her think about what happens when I do fully leave this plane of existence. What do I have to look forward to or not look forward to? So I thought they did it really well without like hitting you over with a hammer over the head. Like this is something really, really tough to think about. So I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite episodes, actually. So yeah.
Great episode. Great stuff. Thank you very much. Allison Leach Hyde. All right, everybody, sit back, relax. It's Mark Zutkoff's turn. What do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to be the contrarian this time. This one was never a favorite. I thought at the beginning of the rewatch my opinion might change, but by the end it was the same. To explain why would take too long, so I'll aim that and some other thoughts for things left unsaid. Unless, of course, you want me to talk more. Anyway, this episode was shot brighter than any other David Carson directed Star Trek episode I can think of. I think Carson was better at the darker episode. A milestone, Worf brings up a security concern when the Romulans want a computer, and Riker listens to him. The scene on the shuttlecraft has a truly soulful performance from Brent Spiner as Data, talking to Worf about funeral services and death rituals. Loved that scene. The scenes where Ro and the phased Romulan are running through various crew quarters reminded me of the scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when Ferris is running across people's lawns when he's trying to beat his sister home. It must have cost extra to redress the quarters and hire extras, but it was nice to see various crew members in their off hours. The moment when the Romulan is thrown through the crew quarters bulkhead and into space happens so quickly that I wasn't certain I saw it. I had to replay it to be sure. Per Memory Alpha, this episode was originally written for Troy and Geordi, but Brandon Braga said, Troy's had enough running and jumping this year. And Ro does do a Bruce Lee-like kick to the Romulan's chest, something Troy probably wouldn't have done. Dixieland music for Geordi and Ro's funeral, more appropriate for Riker than Geordi, I think, though Geordi seemed to appreciate it. I was not thrilled with the end conversation between Ro and Geordi. For some reason, the two share a hearty laugh when Geordi playfully says Ro was taught humility. I don't think that was the natural reaction to such a statement, even in jest. However, Geordi could have said that Ro learns humility, and that's my home pun of the episode.
Thank you very much, Mark Zutkoff. Good stuff as always. Chris Garris is here in Southeast Texas, probably. What do you think of this one?
Oh, I've really liked this episode because it allows you it starts off with you thinking, okay, yes, they may have actually been killed, which obviously you're like, really? But hey, you never know what they're doing. But for me, it's always made me think about what if you were actually able to see what happens after we pass away? Because, my beliefs, you go to heaven or hell. But what if you could actually, go see all of your loved ones before your soul goes to wherever its eternal resting place could be? And, it'd just be kind of cool to see that. Because, some ways I'd like to know what people really thought about me. But, I will say this, after you're done with that and making those last visits, you just better erase your memory because you may not like what you hear, honestly, because you may not be able to handle it for eternity. But now on the non-spiritual side, I felt like, okay, I think it'd just be cool to be able to have a phase cloak in general, just to be able to walk through a wall if you need to get somewhere, or like Geordi was doing, if you need to troubleshoot something, you just stick your head through the console and, oh yeah, there's a problem right there, or something stuck. So yeah, I mean, I think that part is I've always really liked that part of the movie or the episode. Romulans, they're just a bunch of jerks, and you just ignore their hails because you know they're going to do something stupid. They're going to try to blow you up. And trying to think if everything else is for things left unsaid here. I will say this. I was still really surprised that they let Starfleet officers even on the ship in general. Even if they were that one did kind of surprise me. But yeah, again, overall, I have always enjoyed this episode. It's one that I will not skip when it comes up. There's a lot of others, like, some Alexander ones, but that's just me. I know that's a touchy subject, but again, I enjoy this episode, and I have a little things for things left unsaid. So you might want to join Patreon so you can hear what we get to say.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, Chris Garris, who reminds us all that if a Romulan hails you, do what Dionne Warwick says: walk on by. All right, Chris Garris, the Dark Lord. What's up? I'm sorry. Why?
I already down to mine.
I know. I'm so sorry, Chris Garris. Chris McGee is the Dark Lord. Chris Garris is the Lord of Light. What have you got for us, Mr. McGee?
This is one of my top 10 episodes of The Next Generation. Wow. I'm not sure I can put my finger on exactly why, but I just love seeing Ro and LaForge team up, watching them get Picard and Data's attention at the funeral, hoping that Data will figure it out. Then seeing the crew's reaction to them slowly appearing always gives me such a huge feeling of relief and delight. And Ro's excitement as they're about to become in phase again is infectious, really. Speaking of Michelle Forbes, she's been great in all the previous episodes we've seen her, but I think this is the one where we really get to see her act like she never has before. Before, she's been mostly aggressive and adversarial. Now we get to see her go through more emotions as she grapples with her situation. I think she did an amazing job. Sirach and I both enjoy scenes where Geordi is working through a problem, puzzling it out verbally, usually having a conversation with the computer as he does so. Well, we get to see that again here when he was making chronoton fields for Data to find in engineering and discovers that the anion beam could be used to bring himself and Ro back. Chuck mentioned that the female Romulan, Varel, who was played by Susanna Thompson, also plays the Borg Queen in several episodes of Voyager. Carrie mentioned some of her other roles. Well, Sirach might be interested to know, if he doesn't already, that she also played Dax's previous love interest, Lenara Khan, in the DS9 episode Rejoined. I was surprised when I saw that. I didn't know that. I mean, sure, we could go into nitpicks, which, as Jason said, we'll cover in Things Left Unsaid. But even despite the nitpicks, I'm happy to suspend my disbelief to just enjoy this episode. Memorable quote of which, Mark alluded to it earlier: it can teach Ro Laren humility. It can do anything.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff, as always, Mr. Chris McGee, the Dark Lord. All right, Faith Howell is here. Thank goodness she made it. She's on the bridge of the Enterprise D piloting the ship. What do you think of this one?
Okay, for reference, we're getting into the busiest part of my year right here at the end of the school year. Things are chaos. And I couldn't miss this one because this is absolutely one of my favorite episodes. I mean, what's not to love? We get to see Geordi shine. Again, I agree with some of you guys. I do think this is definitely the best episode for Ro so far. Mm-hmm. It's just all around fun. Who doesn't love to get to see Romulan fly out a wall and then also kind of wonder, maybe we should back away a little? So, it's just fun. And definitely, as Chris said, definitely never skip this one.
Absolutely. Never skip it. Great one. Thank you very much, Faith Howell. All right, the Matt Boardman. Have you skipped this episode before? What do you think of it?
Never. I've never skipped this episode in any of the... Gosh, I can't even tell you how many times I've rewatched TNG. It's so much fun. It's great. It has a lot of really cool... I call them little moments. Like, as I was watching through this time, I was I was struck by the moment where Data and Worf are sitting in the shuttle, right? And Ro and Geordi are in there with them. And it's like, it seems like kind of a throwaway moment, but they turn it into something meaningful, right? It's like you get to see operations of the shuttle, like they're waiting for clearance, but they take that time to have a meaningful conversation about death and these views and stuff like that. And I don't know why, but I loved it this time around more than I have any other time, just because it was like, I don't know. It seems like it could have been a throwaway, but I really think it's cool that like it makes you think like, well, what would happen if you were dead and you could see what other people were doing and saying about you? I personally, I don't want to know what anybody has to say about me. You know, you know what I mean? I mean, it could be good, but like then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but his nose was a little bit, and when he smiled, it was like that one tooth was crooked. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But I love the end. Like I'm a sucker for gallows humor, and so that comment by Geordi at the end is like, I don't know, maybe it's not such a bad thing if it could teach you humility. Like that kind of stuff cracks me up. But I don't know. I have a sick sense of humor, so I thought that was fun, and I also like the fact that Geordi. I mean, it's such a typical guy move, right? He's like over there, and he's just like, rah, rah, you know. Rose over here, she's like, crap, I just went through this experience, and I need to like contemplate it. It was almost like Shatner after he went up into space, right? And then he gets down and he's all of a sudden having like this profound moment. And then you've got all the other people over there like, woo, champagne. You know, that's Geordi. He's over there, you know, just chowing down. And that's what I do. I'd be like, bro, I haven't eaten in like however long. I got food to eat. So anyway, it's a fun episode. I love it.
Man, good point. Thanks very much, the Matt Boardman. I think we were all like there with Geordi on that one, though. Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, how long did Geordi say he hadn't eaten for?
Almost 2 days.
So where was he going to the bathroom? And would those dumps be exposed once the anions were fully integrated in the system? Like, who crapped in the corner over here? Sorry,
we're the only ones blowing things up.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just curiosity. But I did look up anions, guys, and they were discovered in the early 80s. They were theoreticized in the early 80s. So at the time of them writing this, they actually hadn't been discovered. They weren't actually discovered until 2020, 5 years ago. And what they are two-dimensional particles. They're it says anions who existed predicted 4 decades ago. They're basically particles that exist in only 2 dimensions, and they're going to be fundamentally used for quantum computers in the future. So anions are a real thing. They weren't big at the time of this writing, still theoretical. So I thought that's interesting for Star Trek, again, to be ahead of the curve on something that's fundamentally going to change the way we do computers.
Yeah.
And anions are also, been used in different nursery rhymes. Like, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Wow. The writer of that has to remain anonymous.
Yes. Excuse me. I thought the run through all the quarters got a little excessive at some point and was making me laugh because it's like, all right, how many different scenarios are we going to be running through? This is almost getting comical now, You're going to run through Picard in his underwear, brushing his teeth, like how many different cabins are we going to run through? And then, my own mind, if I have the ability to run through walls and I'm being chased and I have a distance of gap by 8 feet to 10 feet or more in front of the person I'm running in front of, it would be impossible to catch me, because as I go through the wall and make a turn, you wouldn't know which wall I went through or which way I went. I would be able to lose you unless I ran in a straight line, which is what people do in these movies. When a car is coming down the street, they just run right in front of it in a straight line. And it's like, yeah, if you moved in zigzags in an predictable way, you would totally lose somebody running behind you. It'd be impossible. You can't see through the walls. So I thought that was kind of, a little unbelievable for me. And then I also thought that, I thought, where is that Romulan? I'd love to find that guy who got pushed through the window. Just floating for infinity. That's a hell of a way to go out. And then one last thing I would say is I like how Worf was always kind of like looking out for Starfleet. Like you can see that his loyalties are to Starfleet because he kind of does that whispering, like, I don't think we should be doing this. And Riker agrees with him for one time that I can only remember. Worf is actually listened to. Somebody actually listened to and took his advice. So I was happy to see that. Yeah, and I do think it's interesting to question your beliefs when you go through something like that. I think everybody has a different belief system on what happens after you die, and I think it's if you get more information or if you perceive stuff differently, then you would reevaluate. So I think that's also a natural thing to do. So I like that as well. But yeah, I like this episode. Thought Ronald Moore did a great job. And I should like David Carson's work on it too as well.
Mm-hmm. That's it for us, everybody. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. We're going to do the free-for-all next. We got to say thank you from Faith, Chris, Matt, Chris Garris, Mark Zutkoff, Allison Leach Hyde, Carrie Schwent, Chuck A., Jason M. Oken, for myself, Melissa, Sirach, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. And what's so funny, Melissa? You saving it for things left unsaid, I guess. We will be right back. Sorry, we won't be back. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.